Hello, welcome to another gate transit. My name is Bambaji, and today we are looking at gate 23. This is going to be a bit of a longer overview than I usually do, so you want to get yourselves comfortable before we get going. Go to the loo, get yourself a cup of coffee, and then when you're ready, we can start. So if you're sitting comfortably, I will begin. So gate 23, let me share my screen with you. Oh, yeah, let me do this and do this. Okay, gate 23, here we go. It's a throat gate. It speaks with the voice I know or I don't know. And it's an individuality. And I think we've all gathered by now that individuality means mutation. So there will be more talk of mutation in this gate. So there are three gates in the body graph or three occasions in the body graph where the sun and earth or the nodal activations, they automatically form a channel. And this is one of those times. The others are the 3420 and the 3740. So here we have gate 23 as our sun gate, and it is both an opposition in the wheel and a harmonic in the channel with gate 43. So it's opposite, but it's, okay. So we have the whole channel, okay. I'm very excited about this one. Maybe you can tell. I don't have it myself, but it's an amazing channel. So let us explore it. In some ways, even though we are going through the sun transit and I separate the sun from the earth, and on this occasion and those two others where we have the 3420 and 3740, it sort of makes no sense really just to talk about gate 23 on its own, because even though we're looking at it through the context of the sun transit, it's never on its own. Not when we're looking at it through the sun earth. I mean, it is possible for people to have just gate 23 hanging out somewhere in their chart. But when we're looking at it in this particular context of it being a transit in the sun, then it's never on its own. It's always with 43. So because there are some people that have it as just the 23, and it's interesting to learn about the individual energies, I'm going to split it out and do the 23 and a little bit on 43, and then we're going to look at the synthesis. We'll look at the channel. So that's why this one is a little bit longer. And remember that if you only have one or the other in your chart, you might have a 23 or a 43 hanging out, then, or just hanging. I don't know where the hanging out bit came from, but just hanging around and, waiting for a connection. If you have those in your natal chart, then during the course of this transit, you will experience the whole channel. This is what is coming to you. It's your gift from the neutrino stream. So first, let's look at it as a single gate. And this is the gate of expression of unique and individual insights to the collective. So we know from the last two gates that individuality is strongly rooted in bringing change or transformation or mutation, however you want to say it, into the world. It is part and parcel of the purpose of individuality. They are here to leave the door open for mutation to be accepted. Mutation doesn't really express through individuality, you see. It comes from the inspirational pulse that individuality holds, but it is expressed through the collective. It has to reach everyone in order for it to take hold, in order for it to make a difference. So it makes sense. Individuality have to find a way of communicating the mutation or communicating whatever it is they've got through to the collective. We also know that individuality gets a lot of stick for being different. It makes sense then that gate 23, also as part of its purview, is eliminating intolerance in order to allow for new insights and language. It sets up for the ability of clear communication to come through. Clear communication and understanding. This is the understanding circuit. Individuality is also called, no, it's not, it's called knowing. Okay, get rid of that bit. Understanding is the logical collective. Okay, so clear communication and understanding anyway, because it still has to come through the collective. And gate 23 understands how important these qualities are, because it really doesn't want to be rejected for saying weird shit, really. I've got individuality in my, you can tell, can't you, in my chart. Every now and then, weird shit comes out. The very fact that an insight is unique requires that some care is needed in order for the collective to hear it, because they've not heard anything like it before. This isn't rehashing an old idea. This is something brand new, and it has to be delivered correctly. For an insight to truly be of value to others, it has to be successfully communicated. So eliminating tolerance, this is a tall order for any one gate to take on, but we have, this world is, oh gosh, I'm going to say it. Okay, it's an intolerant world. We live in an intolerant world. And our individuals, they can really suffer in this world because they are different. So for the individual to be respected, they must express their insights clearly to the collective. So this is the gate where awareness and understanding can lead to the acceptance of diversity, of the difference that can come through them. The individual wants to be heard, they want to be understood, they want to be respected. They want their uniqueness to be recognized and lauded for being so valuable to the collective and to the tribal, to the totality as a whole. You have the totality as a whole. That's a tautology, isn't it? The totality already is the whole. Okay. Weird shit. Told you. Gate 23. So at the same time, although they're delivering this and being respected for their uniqueness, and they are being recognized, heard, and so on, they are not trying to become part of the collective or the tribal. They don't want to be homogenized. That's not what they're looking for. They still want to be unique and individual. So it's a fine line that they are traveling along, really. There are elements that you see in the body graph where the individual is really trying to fit in. And we see it particularly in the 1222, which is the social channel for individuality. They're trying to make themselves a little bit more acceptable to everybody else so that what they've got to share will actually come across and it won't seem so strange, or they won't seem so different. But actually individuals, they're happy with their individuality. It's the rest of us that gets a little bit freaked out by it now and then. So the grounding of the earth to the sun gate in 23 is gate 43. And this is in the ajna. So we have the throat and the ajna. This is our channel here. And this is the gate of insight. So it leads down from the 61 at the top in the head to the ajna in 24, and then through the ajna and down here into the 43. So it's part of this stream of knowing. And it's a way of unique insights and inspiration being communicated out. Gate 43 is the gate of the inner ear, and it's listening to its own inner voice. And then it translates what's been rationalized through the 24 from the inner truth of the 61 into a unique perspective that it feeds down into the 23 in order for expression. This is the journey of this stream of knowing. The individual mental knowing, it's not based on facts. It can't be repeated. This is a sort of one in a lifetime event almost. Each time you get that pulse of incredible inspiration. And so that means it can be delusional in a sense. And if you take the sort of word prejudice out of that word delusional, it's not based in fact. Inner knowing in this sense, then, it requires a certain fortitude, a certain strength and courage in order to stand strong, not be thrown off track, because there are going to be accusations of weirdness when you start bringing this stuff out. I have the 61, it's in my personality sun, and so sometimes when I tell stories, I don't know where they're coming from. They just come through, and I'm almost hearing them at the same time that I am speaking them. Well, not almost, I'm hearing them at the same time that I'm speaking them. And sometimes they sound very strange. And it's just letting go of any judgment around that and letting it be. And this is what the individual has to learn, to let go of the judgments and get out of your own way and let that inspiration come through. So 43, it's another deaf gate. People who have this gate do not want to listen to anyone else, and they can be very difficult to teach. It's how they're designed to be, of course. They're not trying to be difficult for the sake of it. And it's not a fault and it's not a problem, and they are absolutely not broken. There is nothing here to be fixed. They do not need to go to a therapist for the fact that they are not very easy to teach. It's their genetic protection, if you like, from undue influence, because they are not here to be influenced by anyone else. And you can imagine how hard this is for children with the 43 or with the whole channel when they're in school and the teacher, and it's hard for the teacher as well, of course. I mean, let's not take the one side over the other, but you have the child who generally doesn't have any choice. They are being pushed into learning, to being taught, and they can come across or have the reputation for being really difficult. The knowing circuit as a whole, this individuality, it does not want to be told. It wants to know things for itself. It wants to work it out for themselves, and then really, really know it. Then it settles in and they can have confidence in what they know. And then they can listen to others because they already have the knowing sort of embedded for themselves. So the 43, it grounds the 23 by making sure that it really does know before it speaks, that it is certain, because we have the definition in the ajna. The ajna can be certain when it's defined. So it can be certain before it starts pushing its knowing out into the wider arena. So what about then when you get the synthesis, when we have the whole channel? When the 23rd gate of assimilation meets the 43rd gate of insight. We have what's called the channel of structuring, and it is the design of individuality from genius to freak. That's its whole name. So obviously here we find a lot of the same keynotes that we find both in the two gates, but also in the whole of individuality. So the channel is stubborn and it is deaf, and there will be an anxiety that what they say won't be understood, and that then there will be some kind of ridicule for their insights. They may never get the recognition that they deserve. And there is always the potential, of course, for melancholy to come calling, followed by the wonderful creativity of the muse. These are all our individual keynotes. It's a projected channel. And this means that it needs to be recognized and invited in order for what it is expressing to land with others. So much hair. Where did all this hair come from? I used to shave my head. It's very odd to have all this hair. Anyway, sorry, off track. It needs to be invited in order to share correctly so that it's heard, so that whatever it's saying has a chance to be really heard properly and accepted. Speaking out of turn can lead to ridicule and to rejection. So this is another fear that can come up with this particular channel around here, is that fear of rejection. Individuality as a whole can carry this fear because they know they're different. And very possibly as children, they have faced some sort of rejection on some level for their difference, or they've been sort of tried to be pushed out of it and homogenized. So rejection is an anxiety that can be there in this channel and in individuality. And this channel also has a reputation for being a bit of a blurter. So it's one of those, doesn't wait to be asked, just says it, and doesn't really, is not really aware of what it is that it's saying necessarily. It's just, it's got to say it, out, 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 out. And it can be quite fun. And it can also be like, whoa, what the hell just came out there then? As with all individuality, it's really essential to be aware of timing. It's a projector channel, as I said, which means regardless of what your type is, if you have this channel, you wait to be invited to share your inspirational insights. The energy of this whole channel can be deeply impactful. It can change the way we think about things. So it'd be interesting to see really what comes out during this transit in terms of what stories we start reading in the media or we hear, or what's on the radio or the podcasts that we're watching. What kind of things are people saying? Are they changing the way that they speak? Is it coming out slightly differently? Are they being a little bit more impactful or a little bit more mutative? Just listen out for it as we go through the transit and see if you can tap into anything there. There is a capability for innovative thinking, and it's really so that it can improve the efficiency of how our energy is used. This is really part of the purpose of the channel of structuring. The structuring is not gradually improving the way things work. It's not about testing and correcting and then retesting, because that's logical, and this is not logical. This is the mutative way. This is change that happens in a pulse. This is that innovative idea that comes in that completely restructures the way the office is run, or the way that you have your lounge, or something to make everything more efficient. So instead of opening the door and banging into a chair, you open the door and you have a nice wide open space. It's just restructuring. And you can put it into whichever context you want, but it's still restructuring. This is the mutative way, that pulse that brings a quantum leap in our evolution. And it can be on the macro level and it can be on the micro level. People with this channel can talk a lot. I don't have this channel. I know I'm talking a lot today, but I don't have this channel. And actually, they really need to talk, people that have this channel, because they have to be able to hear themselves and listen to what it is that they know, because sometimes they don't actually know what they know until they start saying it. It can be a real surprise for them. They are not necessarily in conversation with you. This is something else to bear in mind. Sometimes it could really just be a monologue. They're just listening to themselves rather than to you. It's deaf and stubborn, remember. Bear and I have a friend who has this channel. It's his only channel. He has gate 43 6 times and he has gate 23 twice. So this is like everything. It's his only channel. And because he's got so many activations just in this one channel, you can imagine there aren't a lot of other activations in his chart. So it's quite a focused energy for him. He really, I think he's won gold medals for the last 4 Olympic Games in talking. Talking complete and utter bollocks a lot of the time, but that's how he is. It's really quite fun. Sometimes it's also sometimes gets, okay, enough already, stop talking, stop talking. But he is a wonderful example of this channel. He's very structured. He brings a real efficiency to the company that he works in. He can talk the ears off a dead donkey. He is both a genius and a freak, and it's just fabulous. It's wonderful because it's just so there. You know what I mean? It's really, he doesn't try to hide what he is, who he is, how he's behaving. He doesn't actually know about human design, so it's not a question of him using his design to justify anything. He's just purely expressing it, and it's a really magical thing. So yeah, a bit of a long one, but thank you very much for watching. And we have a gate 1 video somewhere around, be coming out very shortly after this one, or you find it on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, enjoy the genius or freak, and I will see you for another gate transit in about 5.5 or 6 days. Okay, so go gently. Thank you. Bye-bye.